Seth Rollins breaks silence on Roman Reigns' shocking WWE return. Just days before SummerSlam, the WWE Universe is in chaos, and Seth Rollins has finally spoken out. What does the visionary think about the Tribal Chief's stunning return to Raw? You won't believe his reaction. In this video, we break down Seth Rollins' emotional and strategic response to Roman Reigns' return and what it could mean for SummerSlam and the power dynamics within WWE. The night Roman Reigns returned, something shifted. Not just in the locker room. Not just in the title picture. But deep within the heart of a man who spent the last decade staring him down across rings, across eras, across destiny. Seth Rollins wasn't in the arena when the music hit. But his silence afterward spoke louder than any pop, any pyro, any stare down in WWE history. Now, just days before SummerSlam, he's finally spoken. But to understand what he said, and more importantly, what he didn't say, we have to go back to the moment everything broke. It's Monday Night Raw. The crowd is restless, still buzzing from the chaos of last week. Paul Heyman is in the ring, clutching a mic like a weapon, a storm of boos raining down on him. He's barely opened his mouth when the lights flicker. The Titantron pulses. A beat drops that hasn't been heard in 100 days. And then it happens. The arena erupts. Gasps ripple through the crowd like a wave of electricity. The camera cuts to fans covering their mouths, screaming, crying. Because no one expected that music to hit again. No one believed he'd show up tonight. And yet there he was. Roman Reigns. The Tribal Chief. The ghost who vanished after WrestleMania, standing tall at the top of the ramp, with Jacob Fatu and Zilla Fatu flanking him like war dogs unleashed. Paul Heyman froze. The same man who once called Roman the Reign of Terror now looked like a man seeing a ghost. Roman stared down the aisle, his eyes locked. Not on Heyman, but on the future he swore he'd left behind. He walked slowly, deliberately, through the smoke. No mic. No music anymore. Just the sound of his boots against the mat, and a stunned silence from the man who once worshipped him. But backstage, there was another man watching. Seth Rollins. And he didn't say a word. Not then. Not after. Not even when media swarmed him for comment as he left the arena hours later. The visionary, the world heavyweight champion, the man who had spent months mocking the bloodline, exposing their fractures, aligning with Heyman to finally bring down the empire, he just walked to his car, eyes low, mouth tight, face unreadable. That silence became a storm. WWE social media went into overdrive. Was Rollins caught off guard? Was he afraid? Was this the return of his oldest enemy or the resurrection of an inevitable war? Because Roman Reigns didn't just return to confront Heyman. He returned to confront everyone who thought his time was done. And Seth Rollins was first on that list. But now, after 3 days of total silence, Seth has finally spoken. It didn't happen on Raw. It didn't happen in the ring. It happened in a quiet interview room backstage at a live event, with a camera pointed at his face and a question he couldn't avoid any longer. Seth, what was your reaction to Roman Reigns' return? He stared at the floor for a long time. You could hear the hum of the lights, the distant echoes of boots in the hallway. Then, he looked up. And his eyes weren't defiant. They weren't even angry. They were tired. You want to know what I felt? He said, his voice low. I felt history catching up. He didn't elaborate at first. He didn't need to. Because everyone in that room knew exactly what he meant. Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns are not just rivals. They're not just former teammates. They're not just two pillars holding up the modern WWE Universe. They are shadows of each other. Two men forged in the fire of the Shield. Two men who bled together, betrayed each other, and stood alone when the smoke cleared. Their entire careers have been intertwined, even when they were miles apart. And now, it's happening again. I've spent months building something, Seth continued. Something real. Something this company needed. Roman left. I stayed. While he disappeared, I stepped up. I carried this place. I gave fans a champion who shows up. I fought for that world title every night. And now he wants to come back, and what? Pick up where he left off? He shook his head. Not in anger, but in disbelief. Let me be clear, Seth said, his voice suddenly razor-sharp. I'm not afraid of Roman Reigns. I've beaten him before. I know what he is. I know what he isn't. But this time, this isn't about titles. This isn't about who's sitting at the head of the table. This is about legacy. Mine. His. Ours. There was a pause. The interviewer, stunned, whispered. Are you saying this is personal? Seth smiled. But it wasn't the smug, overconfident grin fans know too well. It was sad. It's always been personal. And that's the truth WWE never wants to acknowledge. That behind every main event, behind every stare down and every steel chair shot, there's a history too complicated to script. Because while fans argue over who's the GOAT or who draws the biggest pop, Seth and Roman are fighting a war that started long before the WWE Universe ever noticed. This isn't just about SummerSlam. It's not about belts or brand supremacy. It's about two men who know each other better than anyone, because they built each other. Because deep down, Seth Rollins still remembers the nights he and Roman rode in rental cars across state lines, planning their takeover. He remembers when Roman was the quiet muscle, and Seth was the scheming tactician. He remembers the bond. He remembers the betrayal. He remembers everything. And that's why Roman's return hits harder than any super kick or spear ever could. Because it's not just an opponent returning. It's the unfinished chapter walking back into the story. Now, rumors are flying. Will Roman confront Seth this Monday? Will Paul Heyman pick a side? What role will Jacob and Zilla Fatu play in this civil war? And perhaps most chilling of all, what if this isn't about who walks out of SummerSlam as champion, but who walks out at all? Because if you think Roman came back for gold, you're missing the point. Roman Reigns came back for blood. And Seth Rollins? He's no longer laughing. He's preparing. Strategizing. And somewhere deep in that brilliant, fractured mind of his, he knows. This isn't just another match. It's the reckoning. And SummerSlam? It might be the last time these two stand across the ring from each other without one of them staying down for good. The sun hadn't even risen yet when word reached the locker room that Roman Reigns was on a flight to Cleveland. For the talent backstage, it was like a bolt of lightning cracking through the sky at midnight. Quiet conversation stopped. Phones were lifted. Heads turned toward monitors. And for Seth Rollins, it meant one thing. Time's up. Roman wasn't waiting for SummerSlam. He was coming to Raw. Tonight. Sources close to WWE's production team confirmed what fans had already begun whispering online: security had been doubled. Paul Heyman's personal room was locked down. Jacob and Zilla Fatu were spotted arriving through the underground loading dock just minutes before Raw went live. The bloodline was mobilizing. And no one knew what they were planning. But what stunned people most wasn't Roman's presence. It was Seth's reaction. He didn't flinch. He arrived like always, black leather jacket, dark glasses, heavy boots echoing down the corridor. He stopped for no one. Said nothing to anyone. Not even Paul Heyman. And when asked if he planned to confront Roman in the ring, he smirked. I don't need to go to him, he said. He's already coming for me. But even that bravado couldn't mask what was happening behind his eyes. Something raw. Something heavy. You could see it in the way he moved, slower, more deliberate. You could see it when he passed Roman's name on the matchboard and paused, just for a second, like a man seeing a ghost. Because this wasn't just business anymore. This was a reckoning 12 years in the making. Backstage officials knew what was coming. Producers huddled. Camera crews were told to stay flexible. Commentators were warned to prepare for a confrontation that could erupt at any moment. And as the night wore on, the air inside the arena grew thick with tension. It wasn't a question of if anymore. It was when. Then, at exactly 10:44 p.m. Eastern, it happened. Seth Rollins stood in the ring, the World Heavyweight Championship slung over his shoulder like armor. The crowd was electric. The camera zoomed close. He lifted the mic. "I know you're watching," he said. A pause. The crowd leaned in. "So why don't you stop hiding behind smoke and cousins and silence, and come see me face to face?" The challenge had been issued. The arena lights flickered. The screen pulsed. But this time, Roman didn't appear on the ramp. He appeared in the crowd. A single spotlight caught him, black hoodie, piercing eyes, flanked by Jacob and Zilla, standing motionless at the top of the lower bowl. Like a king surveying a battlefield. Like a wolf pack watching its prey. Seth didn't move. He didn't blink. But the tension in his jaw told a different story. For a moment, they just stared at each other, two men with lifetimes of memories between them, and a war neither had ever truly walked away from. Then Roman nodded once. It was barely a movement. But in that moment, it said everything. "I'm here. I'm ready. And I'm not leaving until one of us is finished." The lights cut out. By the time they returned, Roman was gone. But the damage was done. The fuse had been lit. Backstage, Seth walked into his locker room and slammed the door behind him. For a man who's made a career out of controlling chaos, this was something different. This was personal chaos. The kind that seeps into your bones. And here's the part no one saw, the footage WWE didn't air. Inside that locker room, Seth sat alone. For nearly an hour. No phone. No crew. Just him. And on the table in front of him? A photograph. Faded, creased, clearly well-traveled. 3 men in riot gear. Roman. Seth. Dean Ambrose. The Shield. He stared at it. Then folded it. Then tucked it inside his jacket. Because say what you want about Seth Rollins, the arrogance, the laugh, the mind games, but when it comes to Roman Reigns, none of that matters. Because this isn't just about championships. This is about a man facing the only rival who's ever truly known him. Roman's return isn't just a twist in the storyline. It's a reminder. That the past never dies. That when blood turns cold, it doesn't disappear, it hardens into something unbreakable. And when Seth steps into the ring at SummerSlam, he won't just be defending a title. He'll be defending everything he's built in Roman's absence. The work. The grind. The sacrifice. But deep down, he knows what the stakes really are. Because Roman Reigns doesn't come back to lose. He comes back to conquer. And in his eyes, Seth Rollins is unfinished business. There are whispers that Paul Heyman is nervous. That he's been taking calls behind locked doors. That he's reaching out to old allies and burning bridges at the same time. Because if Roman Reigns is truly back, then the hierarchy resets. And Heyman knows it. And so does Seth. The final words of Seth's interview haunt everything now. "Roman and we don't need a title to fight for. We've got something way deeper. And when he looks at me at SummerSlam, I'll be looking at the man I used to trust with my life. And the man I might have to end to save mine. There's no running anymore. There's no pretending this is just another main event. This is a storm 10 years in the making. And when it hits, only one man walks out of the rubble." At WWE headquarters, officials are scrambling. SummerSlam was supposed to be about celebration. Record-breaking ticket sales. International coverage. The dawn of a new WWE era. But now? Everything's changed. Because the man who once ruled the company in silence, is now shaking the walls without saying a single word. Roman Reigns hasn't spoken. Not once. No interviews. No cryptic tweets. No surprise podcasts or backstage segments. Just three things: a return, a stare, and a statement written in the language of war. And it's left one man, Seth Rollins, carrying the weight of both the past and the future on his shoulders. In the last 48 hours, that silence has spoken volumes. Inside the Performance Center, trainees are whispering. In Stamford, executives are second-guessing booking decisions. Even veteran superstars, people who've seen it all, are quietly admitting they've never felt the locker room so on edge. Because when Roman Reigns doesn't speak, it's not because he has nothing to say. It's because he's letting everyone else sweat. But for Seth Rollins, it's not just sweat. It's pressure. And it's mounting. He's never needed the company to hand him the spotlight, he's carved it out with sweat and scars. But now, with Roman's return hanging over SummerSlam like a guillotine, every move Seth makes is being dissected like prophecy. Why is he training behind closed doors? Why did he cancel 2 scheduled press events? Why did he visit the WWE archives at 2:17 a.m. and request every match he's had with Roman over the last 10 years? Sources say he's not just reviewing footage. He's preparing for a match he knows isn't about wrestling. Because here's what no one's saying aloud. This might be the last time they face each other. The last Rollins vs. Reigns match before everything shatters. And Seth knows it. In a rare off-air moment caught on security cam, Seth was seen talking to a single person, Shawn Michaels. The Heartbreak Kid. Another man who once faced his best friend, turned bitter rival, in the ring with the world watching. Their conversation was muted. Private. But the moment that sent chills? When Shawn placed a hand on Seth's shoulder, and Seth nodded, not in confidence, but in understanding. He wasn't asking how to win. He was asking how to survive. Backstage morale is plummeting. Paul Heyman has vanished from his usual production meetings. Some say he's terrified Roman will target him next. Others say Heyman is playing both sides, whispering to Seth while praying Roman spares him. And then there's a new rumor. Dean Ambrose. Sources say Seth was seen with his old Shield armband earlier this week. Not on camera. Not for fans. Just holding it. Like a man haunted by history. Because when you break a brotherhood like the Shield, the pieces don't vanish. They stay with you. They follow you into matches, into dreams, into decisions you can't take back. And that's the part of Roman's return that no one talks about, the emotional landmine it triggers in Seth. This isn't just the man who wants his title. This is the man who stood by him when they were kids with bulletproof vests and a dream. The man who raised his arm in war, and then speared him into the mat the next night. This is the man who forgave, but never forgot. So when Roman walked through that smoke on Raw, he wasn't just stepping into a new storyline. He was stepping back into Seth's deepest unresolved truth. And that's the danger. Because Seth Rollins has always been a strategist. A visionary. But Roman? Roman is a destroyer. He doesn't scheme. He claims. He doesn't argue. He asserts. And when he wants something, he doesn't ask. He takes it. Now, the question everyone is asking is simple, but terrifying. What does Roman Reigns want? Is it the World Heavyweight title? Is it vengeance? Or is it something far more sinister, the erasure of Seth Rollins himself? A rebalancing of the tribal order. A message that there can only be one true face of WWE, and only one can survive. Because if you look closely at Roman's return, you'll notice something. He didn't walk through the smoke flanked by bloodline. He didn't hold up gold. He didn't even glare at Heyman like the betrayal still stung. He looked through the camera. At Seth. As if to say, you kept the throne warm. But now the king is home. And that's why Seth's hands trembled slightly as he taped his wrists after Raw. That's why his voice cracked, not with fear, but with familiarity, when he said, "He's back. And I know what's coming." Because deep down, the visionary has seen this future before. It ended in steel chairs, betrayal, and exile. But this time? It may end in blood. Friday night. The final SmackDown before SummerSlam. The locker room is a graveyard of movement, people speaking in hushed voices, glancing over shoulders, waiting for the sound of something they all fear but can't avoid. Roman Reigns. No longer a ghost. No longer a legend whispered about in corridors. He's here. In the building. And he's not scheduled. That's what makes it worse. Because when Roman is scheduled, there's order. Cameras are ready. Agents are prepared. Security is tight. But when he shows up unannounced, chaos follows. And tonight, chaos has a name, Seth Rollins. The production crew is jittery. Writers are panicking. Paul Heyman hasn't been seen since 5 p.m. No one knows where he is, or who he's with. Seth, meanwhile, is pacing in a private room. Alone. There's no music playing. No entourage. No laughter. Just silence. He's dressed in all black, no sequins, no flash. Just the bare minimum, boots, tape, grit. This isn't a performance anymore. This is a reckoning. Earlier that day, Seth recorded a backstage segment. WWE hasn't aired it yet, maybe they never will. But the footage leaked. In it, he's sitting in a folding chair, staring at the floor. He says one thing. "If Roman Reigns wants to finish what we started, tell him I'll leave the door open. But he better be ready to step through it alone." That line has everyone on edge. Because it's not just a dare. It's a trap. And Roman Reigns has never been one to walk into traps. Unless he built them himself. As the SmackDown main event ends, the crowd is electric. Cody Rhodes stands victorious in the ring, celebrating a hard-fought win. The camera zooms in on his exhausted face. And then the lights cut. Not flicker. Not dim. Cut. A beat passes. Then a low rumble builds. The screens flicker like static. A silhouette appears at the top of the ramp. But it's not Roman. It's Jacob Fatu. And flanking him? Zilla. The Bloodline's new spearheads. Young. Violent. Unpredictable. They storm the ring. Cody barely has time to react. The beating is savage. Chair shots. Super kicks. A steel step crushed into his ribs. The commentary team is screaming for security. Fans are on their feet, phones raised, unsure if what they're witnessing is scripted or spontaneous. And then it happens. The tribal drums. The lights go blood red. And Roman Reigns appears. Not walking. Marching. He doesn't touch Cody. He doesn't need to. He grabs a mic and turns toward the camera, not the crowd, not the ring. The camera. And he says one sentence. "You think I came back for a belt?" He drops the mic. The screen fades to black. The arena descends into a roar of confusion and awe. And backstage? Seth Rollins is watching. In that moment, it becomes clear. This is not about the world.